of his presence. The arch-enemy is back. He will threaten the city. He's a maniac with awful power. And no one can help. No one except Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. The first feature-length Batman Beyond movie coming exclusively to video fall 2000. And this time, he's not alone.
Hey folks, Rob Daniels here for the movie, TV, and video game soundtrack program Visions in Sound. You can find me every Saturday morning, 12 to 2 a.m. on Mix 98.5, and if you miss the show, hey, it does happen. You can also try me on visionsinsound.ca. Well, folks, this is not a regular video. This is one that I recorded a little while ago, well, not that long ago, but a little while ago, with composer Kristopher Carter. And he is the composer of, among many other things, Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, Yesterday Was a Lie, and a slew of others. I had a chance to sit down with him and talk track by track the soundtrack to his Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker score. This is cool. It's going to be a bit of a sit. So sit back, and if you want to hear everything that you wanted to, well, not everything you wanted to know, but a lot of things you wanted to know about the score, then by all means, sit, listen, and enjoy, because I sure had a blast doing this. All right, well, I'm here with Chris Carter, and we're going to be talking about Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, which actually celebrates its 25th anniversary this year. Chris, 25 years. Does it feel like 25 years since Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker?
Hi, Robert. Thank you so much for having me. I guess I don't I no. The basic answer of all the different ways we could take a look at it. No, not at all. And it's kind of amazing. I guess given 25 years from then, I must have been about 5 years old when I was composing it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that again, you're the very young composer, but I mean, obviously you had been working on the series and you wrote the main theme for Batman Beyond, but how did they approach you with this Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker direct to video film?
Well, I mean, everything in my career, the beginning of my career, I certainly owe to Shirley Walker, who was the fabulous composer, the supervising composer of Batman the Animated Series, and she hired me right out of college to both assist her and write on Batman the Animated Series and then
Right.
Superman. When Batman Beyond came along, um, you know, there were several pieces that Shirley had her team, which was me and Michael McQuistion and Lolita Ritmanis. The four of us put together to audition for the show to demonstrate how we weren't just the symphonic superhero composers, that we had a whole other sound that we could bring to an animated series.
Right.
And it was very different. It was very unexpected, and it was a wonderful challenge to kind of think outside the box in terms of bringing that into a superhero context. And Shirley, being the supervising composer of the action animated series, would sometimes let the people that were under her disciples, I was a Shirley disciple, um, do these animated movies that were produced alongside the animated series. And so Michael McQuistion did the score to Sub-Zero.
Hmm.
Lolita did the score to Mystery of the Batwoman. And when Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker came along, Shirley decided she would let me do it. So it was really her call, and I'm really grateful for a chance to do this feature, because we knew it was going to have a little bit bigger budget than the animated series, so we would
Right.
be able to uh, kind of culminate what I think the sound of the series of the show wanted to be all along, in terms of not just Nine Inch Nails and Rob Zombie and twisted drums and distorted guitars and stuff, but also orchestra. I mean, the sound of the orchestra, the power of the orchestra, mixed with these electronic distorted elements, was something that I think we always wanted to do. And Return of the Joker gave us the opportunity to realize that vision.
Right. So now what we're going to be doing Something very unusual, something I don't think I've ever really done before with a soundtrack is break it down track by track, at least with the composer in the same same audio. Where we're going to be talking about each of the individual 14 tracks and maybe get some insight from you and my observations, and then you can tell me whether or not I'm right or not. And so why don't we just start with the main title? And for me, I mean, you wrote the main title for the series. So I was expecting something along those same lines, and what surprised me in all of this is how restrained and subdued the the main title is, and not what I expected from Batman Beyond. Was that always your approach, or did you have people saying, "Well, we want it big," or that sort of thing?
Music for any series or for any film project is always going to be reflect the choices of the director and the composer.
Right.
And the important thing about the main title for Return of the Joker is that it has to reflect the placement in the film.
Hmm.
And I do know, and this I know this drives film fans nuts, but the soundtrack was actually arranged in more of a listening order than it was in show order.
Right.
Um, and that's that is actually not a choice that I've been making recently. Michael and Lolita and I have been releasing a lot of archival soundtracks on our own label from Teen Titans and from Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and Batman Beyond, and we've actually been putting them together in show order. So the main title of Return of the Joker happens at about 7 or 8 minutes into the film after this gigantic action scene.
Yeah.
It was so big, it was actually two cues across the soundtrack for that one extended scene. And it was all so high energy and so bombastic and everything about that we had to, pulling out all the stops in the first 8 minutes of the film, leaving room to, grow through the rest of the film.
Right.
That we did have to pull it back. So in order to, kind of reset the audience, give them a chance to collectively take a breath, that's the exact reason that the main title was more restrained than the one for the series, because we got to, it had to let us bring it back, break it down.
Right.
And and also I just think from a creative standpoint, it was really interesting to take that bombastic theme from the series, kind of strip it down to its essential motifs,
Mhm.
and then reimagine it in this more restrained way to kind of say this is a feature. This is we're gonna like take our time and we're not gonna rush through this in 22 minutes like we would usually do on a TV kind of pacing. So
Right.
that was something that Bruce Timm, the producer, and I, as the composer, did during our spotting session, which is the initial meeting where we talk about where the music is, where the music's not. We both looked at each other and said, "We got to take a break." And
if I'm not mistaken, the actual kind of kicking off of the movie is the industrial heist, or as you mentioned, one, you mentioned over two tracks.
Hmm.
So now this for me, when I immediately wrote down balance. And one of the things that struck me about that was yes, it was high energy and that sort of thing, but there's also this, um, as I put it, balance between, and this comes up a lot later with the whole idea of Terry Bruce the Joker dynamic in all of this. One of the things that jumped out at me is immediately upon listening to this more recently was I was surprised at the amount of orchestral elements in this. There was some uh, great strings. There was I used a specific time here, but there was an underlying string bass that just did this really neat kind of it was like a maybe a three line um, string bass, but it was just it struck me as like this is a bit more than the industrial stuff that we were used to in Batman Beyond. And like I said, the one thing that I like I said that really jumped out at me was the orchestral elements in there. And I also wrote this down as well. There's a great bass guitar in this. Just this really this when I heard it, I wrote it down and I said, yeah, I gotta tell Chris, great bass guitar in this. So what's your take on Industrial Heist? Now this is actually the real kickoff of the film.
Yeah, this is the opening of the film, which of course, again, while it very quickly moves into a big action scene, there is a certain amount of heisting and sneaking, and the initial music definitely captures that. And yes, I was consciously using orchestral elements balanced with electronics just to immediately communicate this is a much bigger scope, there's a much bigger palette of color than we've been using in the series. And even in the opening notes, there's this combination of harp and vibraphone and strings that are kind of weaving their way around, the electronic drum loop that kind of propels it. Um, I was thrilled to work on the series. Gabriel Moses, who's he played the guitar on even my initial demo that became the main title, and a lot of my episodes of the series. Gabriel, I don't think Batman Beyond that I the music that I contributed to Batman Beyond would sound nearly the same without Gabriel's talent. He's just essential to that part of the rock sound. But supporting Gabriel underneath his guitar was a bass player, and his name is John Button, and he was my roommate. I went to college with him, and without I think just to talk about my roommate playing bass on my tracks kind of, says, oh, it's a nice favor. John is currently the bass player for The Who. I mean, he's
Oh,
and from this point all the way back to 25 years ago, he's been a phenomenal studio bass player, live bass player. I mean, that obviously is, you know, playing with The Who is a pretty incredible honor, but his whole resume is just amazing. How many artists he's toured the world with. And he's such a good bass player. I just every chance I could get to kind of let him take the spotlight for a minute. I love doing that. So I appreciate you asking about him because yeah, I felt the same. I was like, oh, here's a great moment we can put John
yeah,
to work.
there's
To
this,
shine.
and for me, it just struck me as like, and it was just at the right moment, in the score where it was, and it just jumped out of me, and I went, yeah, this is a really great bass line. And it was like, wow, okay. I don't know if you're familiar with a guitarist by the name of, oh, what's his name? Stephen Terryberry. And he has a channel here where he goes through um, different pieces of music and that sort of thing. And one of the terms that I've picked up that he uses is that it really slaps. So you might hear that
Oh,
come up a few times, where
yeah,
this
awesome.
guitar really slaps. And if you get a chance, check out his channel. It's actually he's a really good guitarist, like a really good guitarist.
Excellent.
But yeah, skipping now to the third track, which is Meet the Joker. This immediately, and I have written down in huge letters here, horror. And
Mm.
um this felt like I also have written down here in not as big letters, but tubular bells.
Hmm.
And it's my favorite kind of instrument. I'm a sucker for harpsichord and tubular bells, and it
Ah,
felt very much like you were going full on horror with the Joker. And I have written down here, and I have this thing I asked. Were at any point were you asked by whether it's Bruce Timm or producers or anything like to tone it down a bit because this is a kids movie, supposedly.
um, I think on the other, I think it's actually on the other side of it. Throughout all of my work with Bruce Timm and all the great animators at Warner Brothers, we've never been asked to tone it down because it's a kids movie. In fact, Bruce even said, one of my early things I took away from meetings with him is that kids are very savvy.
Hmm.
Kids really know what's a lot more than I think parents give them credit for. And kids also definitely know when things are being, I'm talking about older kids. They
Yes.
definitely know when things being is kind of being toned down or they're being talked down to.
Yes.
So no. Bruce Timm always said go for it. And I know that's you know both in Return of the Joker and some other episodes where it actually was quite horrific. That was my initial feeling when I watched it the first time was, oh my God, you mean we're gonna do this? But
Yeah, one of the things I have written down here, and I don't like, I mean, you get to see the movie long before anybody else does. But was this in your mind? It reminded me a lot of Tubular Bells from The Exorcist.
oh,
That's
interesting. Yeah.
that was and then I thought, "Oh God, is this your subtle way of foreshadowing the possession that is involved in in the in essentially what happens with the Joker character and with Tim Drake and that sort of thing."
Well, 25-year-old spoiler warning, but um, no, it was definitely not thinking specifically of The Exorcist and the possession. Although now that you've said it, I'm going to tell that story as though I meant it from from everywhere because that's a really great. I love that. It was definitely not intended. Um, I got my degree in contemporary composition,
Right.
and a lot of contemporary composition at the university is very avant-garde, and a lot of avant-garde music, um, being very dissonant and angular and clusters of sound, actually is very much associated with horror music,
Right.
and in fact, you know, if you can play one sound, it may be kind of consonant. If you start adding sounds, it can be more dissonant. Um, I played a piece in college and subsequently had to bring it into one of the animated Superman scores, where you actually create this long wood that plays all 88 keys of the piano at once.
Oh, okay.
So you just bang it down, and that's about as dissonant as you can get. And combining that with dissonance in the bells and dissonance in other types of ringing types of instruments is a good way to really make the music feel unsettled. And I think that in almost every animated portrayal of the Joker, even if there's circus music, there's kind of an underlying madness
Yeah.
and cruelty.
We'll get to
And
that.
and the cruelty and madness is not something we were going to hide. I mean, we're going to say this is who this person is, and we're going to play that up.
So now we'll move on to Joker crashes Bruce's party. And in this case, I basically said this feels like it's from the Batman Beyond series.
Hmm.
One of the things that struck me was Gabriel Moses's guitar. I'm assuming that he did guitar through most of the score on
Yes.
this.
Oh, in
And
Return of the Joker, he played all the
okay,
guitars you hear.
all right, no problem then. And something that struck me as well was this electronic pulse. It was
Hmm.
this da 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 throughout the entire thing, and I'm
Hmm.
curious as to, um, again, it was a subtle thing, but it just struck me as kind of the pulse of the track to kind of propel it along and that sort of thing. And for me, that was what that to me this is one of the many um tracks that actually struck me as this could have been in the Batman Beyond series.
Hmm. Well, it was the most, this from a story point, it was the most typical to Batman Beyond in
Of
terms of,
course.
there's bad stuff going down, and Batman Terry shows up, and yeah, it was just a little bit more kind of rooting us in. This is the Batman Beyond series, so I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, and as far as the echoey synth thing, yeah, I think that across several seasons and the movie, there was just a lot of work to try to freshen up the sounds. And I did spend a lot of time on Return of the Joker, developing new ways to propel the music in an electronic way. Lots of pre-production with sampling and distorting and twisting things in the computer, and that was,
That must have
then
been
it was time to play.
that must have been extremely hard in 2000. Or a bit more difficult than you can do today.
Um, yes, I think there. Yeah, well, I will contrast it to say that now it is so easy. I mean, I really there's just the tools. I think so many people have created tools that you can use in the computer to mangle sounds. You have almost an embarrassment of riches of ways you can try to do things. And yes, because those there weren't as many software tools available. Sure, you absolutely had to say, well, what can we do with this? Let's turn it upside down, and yeah.
This must have helped you on a creative side because you have to make this sound futuristic, but at the same time you've got these tools that are um, analog synths and that sort of thing. I mean, I know it wasn't quite that bad in 2000, but you had to I would assume that you had to kind of um, maybe use some live elements to kind of, bolster or help boost up some of this stuff as well.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, there were sessions where I would bring in just a single player into the studio with a bunch of musical toys and just say, "Let's play with it." Um, it it just says I we'll get more into it later, but I know that again, just looking to your musicians to what they can bring to your score is um, is such an asset for a composer. Because it's great if you have the knowledge and can do stuff yourself, but all these musicians that we work with in Los Angeles and around the world that have really developed their style and their skill set, they all have discovered things that nobody else has.
Right.
And to be able to sit down with them in a studio environment and say, show me something cool, show me something different. And that's all that I'm going to say about it right now. But when we get into uh, one of the later oh yes, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the track list.
Yeah, no
We'll
worries.
talk about it very soon because that was a situation where Gabriel Moses brought in sound design elements that there's no way I could have done just in the computer alone.
So now let's move on to Terry relieved of duty. I
Mhm.
have a note here saying this feels a lot like Batman the Animated Series.
Mhm.
This really feels, and one of the things that like it's a word that pops up so much through this whole thing is balance. And
Mhm.
that you've got that balance between Terry and Bruce in this, where you
Mhm.
have those subtle guitar elements that will fall in, but then suddenly going back to, Bruce saying, "Hey, you're no longer doing this because the Joker's too you haven't faced anyone like this before." And there's that moment where it kind of goes back and there's a couple of subtle statements, at least it felt to me, very much like something out of the original Batman the Animated Series. I also have written here nice use of brass in this, and that it
Mm.
was just this really nice way of bridging between the two generations, essentially.
Sure.
So with Terry relieved of duty, again, like I said, it feels like a Batman the Animated Series track. Was that always kind of your take in all of this, was to find that balance between the two worlds?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Especially because the focus was on, you know, the trauma that Bruce had carried from the event that we get into later on.
Right.
And that's the reason that he doesn't want to let Terry, be exposed to the danger, again. And the orchestra, all the different parts of the orchestra, the strings and the brass, contributed something very very warm and
Hmm.
very organic and very acoustic. And it was alive. It needed to live, and that's something that the orchestra can do, better than anything.
Yeah, so I'm gonna move on to nightclub fight. Terry rescues Bruce. The first part of this track I have written down. I hated this track when I first heard it back in 2000. I would it when I started my show, which was around that time, whenever I would play um, Return of the Joker, I avoided six like the plague. I hated it. I was
Okay.
like, I put it down as too heavy,
Okay.
too much.
Yes.
But then I wrote later, I wrote also, but it has since grown on me. So,
Interesting.
so the one thing I hated the most about it, 35 seconds in, is that damn pneumatic drill sound. That
Mhm. Yeah.
whole, it was like a drill to the brain. First of all, what was that? Was it in fact one of those um uh pneumatic drills that they use in the races where they quickly remove the bolts. What was that?
It is an electric drill, but it was that recording of that electric drill was run through a guitar amp, and yeah.
I hated it. I thought this was,
So funny.
I actually have written down noise for noise sake.
Mm,
And I thought to myself, this is just, what is this? This is
yeah.
completely like, I mean, this is, I'm thinking of all the stuff you did for Batman Beyond was out there, but this was just, this, for me, this was just too much. I had to draw the
Oh,
line there.
okay.
And the reversal of that drill, it sounds like a scream. I'm sure that was either a happy accident or just a great um take on your part, was that you've got the one thing where you've got the drilling sound, and then the reverse of that
Yeah.
sounds like this primal scream, which was just, and again, like I said, the track has grown on me over the
That's
years.
interesting.
So I don't
Yeah,
want to, I don't still hate it, but wow, it was at that time I was like, this is just too much.
that's
And
funny.
and later on, and again I go back, and again I have it written in huge letters here, balance. And at about 2:49 in the track,
Mhm.
it then changes to kind of this more subtle nods to Batman the Animated Series, and then there were actually like full on Batman the Animated Series statements that I felt were
Yes.
coming through in that, and I'm sure
Yes.
that was very intentional because this is Terry Rescues Bruce.
Yes. Well, I wanted to say a couple things about the earlier part
Right.
before we get too far away from that. Yes, I mean that is actually a really good example of how I was saying the sound design that I did prior to the movie. Yeah, it was recording things, distorting things, electric drill through the guitar amp.
Yeah.
The scream thing that you heard is actually it's something I found on a disc of voice samples. So it actually is a voice,
Okay.
and but then put lots of echoes and stuff on it, so it felt really twisted. Um, to kind of be musical nerdy for a moment, the time signature of that is mostly 13/8,
Okay.
and
So yeah, meant to throw you off.
most rock music is what they say 4/4. There's four beats.
Right.
So this 13/8 means that it's very off kilter. So the drill is off kilter, the music's off kilter. Um, Everything about it was supposed to be very unsettling, and I am thrilled that you hated it because I did my job.
Yeah, when like I said, I was just when I first heard it, I went
Mhm.
and I just stopped. Like, I
Oh,
mean,
that's funny.
when I first heard this, I went, "What is this? I can't take this anymore." And I just
Yeah,
stopped it and took the disc out, or skipped to the next track. That's what I did.
yeah.
And
So
like,
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No, I was gonna say, well, no, continue. I'm sorry.
Oh well, and then moving into the last part where Terry rescues Bruce, that plot wise is where Terry realizes that people that know Batman's secret and they know Bruce's secret, and he realizes Bruce is in danger. And so the
Right.
first part of that is a little more traditional orchestral music, even though it had the drum beat, drum groove going, and it's in 4/4, thankfully, so
Yes.
it's more regular. But once we get into the Bat Cave, where Terry discovers Bruce and his injuries, that again, we have the heart and the warmth of the orchestra, but it still is terrifying because Bruce has been injected with the Joker gas, and it's not just the orchestra. There's still the electric guitar playing the kind of dissonant notes,
Yeah.
as we're worried for Bruce. So again, that we stepped away from just Batman the Animated Series into something that was this more typically Batman Beyond hybrid of the orchestra.
Right. So now moving on to probably there's going to be a few tracks here where I go from I hated this track to okay, now we're back to form. This is a trap for Tim.
I
Mhm.
mean that was this whole section is one of the main reasons that we had the flexibility to have the orchestra
Right.
because Bruce was going to want to go, full on authentic Batman the Animated Series as
Hmm.
far as the sound. So no more guitars. We
Right.
sent them home for a lunch break, and yeah, we just had the orchestra playing, um, playing what you would a big traditional symphonic kind of sound. So it was a complete and deliberate shift into only orchestra.
Right. One of the things that jumped out at me as well was the Robin's theme. It
Hmm.
almost felt like the opposite of Bruce's Batman. It felt very, it was almost as if you had taken Bruce's Batman theme and made it optimistic and triumphant. And
Yeah.
that's how it felt with Robin's the statement of Robin's theme in the score.
Well,
And
and
again,
again, so much of the style that Shirley taught me and Michael and Lolita, and just my approach to scoring in general is you play off of what you see on the screen. It's very difficult for me to write film music without, from just a script or something. I really get my ideas and the flow from the picture. And I mean, Robin, he's magnificent. He's at the top of his form and he's flipping through the air. And the music absolutely has to follow that and live with it. So yeah, it was very much inspired by and created to accompany the Robin that we see on screen.
like I said, I was like, okay, this is for a while for a while I was like, this is why I wanted them to release the Batman the Animated Series music because at that point the only thing that was out was Mask of the Phantasm.
Right.
I was like, there needs to be more of this released, and I'm glad that that track is on the soundtrack. So let's move on to track 8, which is Joker Family Portrait.
Right.
And it starts off, and I say starts goofy, then turns dark.
Hmm.
And it seems to be almost a cliche at this point to score the Joker with this kind of almost goofy kind of sound to it. But
Hmm.
with the difference between you and other composers that score the Joker is yeah, it's all goofy and that sort of thing, but there is this underlying darkness that you portray. It's all sitcom-y and game show, but then there's this one moment where it's just like it the scene turns a little bit and you hear this kind of low rumbling.
Hmm.
And for me, the one thing that actually that for a while was the wah wah trumpet. The
Hmm.
wah wah wah, and that
Right.
to me, it caught me off guard. I'm like, where are you going with this? And that sort of thing. And then at 121 of the track, there is this moment where it just, and I've talked about this with you before, and I know it's if I understand correctly, this was kind of a Gabriel Moses thing with the was it the music box on the guitar strings. Explain what this is, because to this day, whenever I hear that sound, it just, like, the hairs on the back of my neck just go up, and I'm just like, "Ooh, this is creepy scary on this one." So what was the origins of that? And um, please tell me.
Oh, full credit to Gabriel and his own tinkering with sounds and stuff.
Right.
He actually has the inner mechanism of a music box. So it's just basically the crank and the tines that make the note.
Yeah.
And he discovered that if you put it on the guitar strings of an electric guitar and then crank it, the pickups of the electric guitar will will get this will amplify that sound, which then
Yeah.
goes through his guitar pedals and his guitar amp and all these weird effect sounds, his big cavernous reverb and other types of sounds to make it kind of swirl around. And yeah, that was 100% Gabriel's sound. And the way that it works as a composer is
Yeah.
I sit down and say, Gabe, we really need some kind of bizarre thing to happen here. And he said, I got just the thing, you know. And so it's still it's applying a sound to the creative concept that the composer
Right.
is at least um you know in the innovation of what the sound is going to be is definitely coming from my vision for the scene, but
Right.
the execution of it, being able to collaborate with musicians that have these cool things, there's no way I could do that with computers or samplers or anything like that. It's just something that's so raw and um
It felt very
yeah,
organic to me. It felt very
yeah.
like I have not heard a sound since that has come to even match that. And for me, for it to stick with me as long as it did, just speaks volumes to um its effectiveness in the scene, and on the in the score itself.
Mhm.
It's to me, it will continue to stick with me in my nightmares when I hear that, this subtle little, and like I said, I to be honest, I've listened for it, and I've never heard anything else quite like that. So so I don't I it's one of those things that I'm so glad that it came out in that way, and that no one else has kind of picked up on it and ruined it by by doing something else with it as well. So I kudos to you, sir, and kudos to Gabriel for
Yeah, for
that,
sure.
for having the foresight enough to say, "Hey, have a listen to this," kind of thing. So yeah, so yeah, inner working. So was it a wind up, or was it one of those little crank?
No,
You said crank. It was a crank.
yeah. Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, it's hugely effective. And again, to this day, I'm just, yeah, it just thinking about it just makes me go, oh, oh. Anyway. So let's move on to track 9, which is Arkham Mayhem.
Mhm.
And this to me, and I wrote this down, this is a full-on horror track.
Yes, it
This is
is.
how it felt. Unnerving and creepy was what I wrote down.
Hmm.
Um, and I bet you get this a lot, and I'm sure you've gotten this a lot over your years of working on the show. It's very Elfman-esque in its approach.
Oh, interesting. I
Sounds
don't think anybody's told me that before. So,
it's gothic. It has
uh-huh.
this almost um um like there was a moment there where it's like this is something that Danny would have done in his early days, especially with the 89 Batman and the 92 Batman returns.
Mm.
It was this just this very low kind of just this gothic sound. And just as a side note, my girlfriend she plays goth music. So when
Mm.
I was listening to this, I'm like, okay, that may have been where it was from, but I don't know. Um, I also make a mention of this low brass, this before Zimmer did it with it was this brum, brum, this sound that came through, and I'm like with underlying strings.
Uh-huh.
And it was just this again full on horror track, and to come from Joker Family Portrait to
Mm.
Arkham Mayhem was just this it was a perfect blend in my opinion on disc. And you know
Cool. Thank you. I mean, the story went there. The story went
yeah,
with it started with even though it was kind of the 1950s sitcom was sarcasm, and it went immediately into the kind of darker bits with Tim being restrained.
yes,
It went into this dark place, this dark horrific place, and the music had to. We had to follow.
right,
We could
exactly.
we had to just we have to it's a journey that we have to take if we're going to experience this story. And of course, even as between the two versions of Return of the Joker, the initial one that was, you know, that they feel was toned down, even though I don't know that they really changed the horror of it much.
No, they're the well, like I said, for again, spoilers for a 25-year-old movie. The original one has the Joker essentially being electrocuted. The one that I saw first. But the previous one has Tim shoot him with his own bang gun, with the gun with
Right.
the flag on it.
Hmm.
And that I felt was a more effective end to the Joker, which is essentially what this is. This is and Barbara even goes so far as to say, we buried him in Arkham Asylum, and we never spoke about it again, kind of thing.
Right.
Um, and but I did write down that the track does end with this tragic flute and strings.
Hmm.
Is that I'm pretty sure that's the moment when Tim breaks down,
Yes.
and it's just he's well, and the Joker's been electrocuted or he's been shot, depending on which version of the film you see,
Hmm.
and he just breaks down, and then there is this like it's beautifully tragic in
Hmm.
the space of the film, but
Yeah.
it's so well done, so well timed as well. And I mean, I know that um, when you're spotting this, I'm sure Tim said, "This is what we have to do," or was this kind of just you watched it and then Tim went, "Ah, that's what we got from it." It-
Oh no, I from the initial spotting sessions, Bruce Tim we were all in agreement of we need the music to support the tragedy. And uh Robin has been tortured, and he's having a mental breakdown, and
right.
this is really, really emotionally intense, and so the music had permission to be tragic. Um and I just want to make sure you know that the Tim murdering the Joker with a gun is the original version of the movie. That's
Yes.
what
Oh
was
no.
scored.
I
Yeah.
was well aware. I was well aware of
Okay.
that. The version that I first saw when I got it on VHS back in 2000 was the version where he gets electrocuted. I only
Yes.
found out later when I accidentally bought it on DVD, this uncut version, and I'm going,
Mhm.
what's the difference? And then I
Yeah.
saw that scene and I went, oh. That's why it's uncut and PG-13 on this version of the disc. Yeah,
And
it completely hit me out of nowhere on that one.
yeah, and
I was unaware.
there's actually a correspondence between the two back, at the in the Meet the Joker track. Joker puts an end to Bonk with the same gun. And so there's a
Which
parallel.
which again, they kind of toned down that
Mhm.
it implies that he didn't kill him, that he just knocked him out.
Right.
There was a lot of subtle changes that I
Yeah.
noticed throughout watching that. Yeah, in the uncut version, there is a brutalness to the Joker that
Mhm.
is again in the version that I ended up seeing was toned down a little bit. By the way, at what point were you given that we have to that the scenes that these were changing, scenes were
Mhm.
changing?
Yes.
Um, and did you have to change your music much in that, or
Yes.
was it more or less just along the lines of, okay, explain that.
So here's the thing. The general mandate for the film was that it was too violent and they needed to basically have the violence.
Right.
So if there was, for instance, in the industrial heist part, if the Dee Dees, the twin characters, made three kicks, that had to be cut down to one kick.
Okay.
So if, they were basically cutting it like that. Now, if you have a piece of music that has a flow and established to it, and you have to lift out, 15 seconds because something's gone, it's not so hard to just make the music, elegantly go from one place to the bit that was cut out. But when you have just one kick or two kicks cut out of a sequence where there's three kicks, we're talking about a split second, maybe half a bar, 2.5 beats.
Hmm.
And so it actually required tremendous amount of really intricate score surgery to have the music continue to match the picture and not feel like it was all chopped up.
Right.
Um, and that took a lot of work. And the score was actually done. We were done with the movie. So we had done all the recording, we had done
Right.
all the editing and the final mixing, and then they said, "Oh, we're changing it now." So all those edits had to happen to the finished music, which was a lot more challenging than if we hadn't recorded yet. We could kind of rewrite some things and then
Right.
record the version for the edit. So it was a very big job. But and I didn't do that just by myself. My head orchestrator, Larry Wrench, and my music editor, actually, no, it wasn't Tom, it was Kim. Um, we had to spend many hours kind of hovering over the music and making it so that you wouldn't notice all the edits that had happened. But we got it. And by the time the cut version was released, honestly, I'm very happy with it. So I never felt like, the music had to suffer because of the edits. I think we did something that kept the integrity of the music, still told the story, and addressed, the changes to the picture. And I mean, that's the job. That's what you have to do as the composer. You
Exactly.
have to make it work.
So yeah, I was going to ask about what isn't that just something you would turn over to your music editor? But
Mhm.
I think it would be a little bit more involved than just that.
Given the intricacy of the edits that had to be made, I wanted to be involved, in the process, just to make sure that I was happy with how the music had to be cut up to fit the picture. And like I said, I think we found some really good solutions.
Right. Well, what was the timeline that you were given for the original and then for the original cut of the score and then the time that you were given to make those little subtle changes?
I think I had about 2 months to write the entire score. That included all the recording and all the mixing. And it was done in stages. So we would record, have the rhythm section first with the guitars and the bass. I actually recorded the electric guitars in my house, and
Okay.
Gabriel brought over three Marshall stacks of amplifier stacks,
Right.
put it in a bedroom next to my studio. And just out of curiosity, I went out because I lived in a cul-de-sac. I went out to hear if the neighbors would hear anything,
Right.
and it was insanely loud. So I'm glad that nobody complained. But it was a really fun process to record that in the house. And then there were several days of sessions with the orchestra at the Warner Brothers scoring stage. The drums were recorded at I'm blanking on what the name of the studio was at the time. It's currently called East West Studios, but it's a
Right.
very famous, very famous studio where there's done tons of music. All that had to happen in steps in different days.
Right. And it's pulled together brilliantly. I'll just say on that one.
Well, and the
Um,
mixing is a big issue.
yes.
There's 30 we recorded the drums on old school analog recorder, which sounds great, but all of it ended up getting transferred to a 32 track digital. I mean, one of those, multi-million dollar machines sitting in the corner. And it was all put together with Bobby Fernandez, who was the recording engineer for everything that we did before then for Batman the Animated Series and Superman. Brilliant, brilliant, well experienced music engineer, and I was so happy that he was the one that got to bring all these elements together.
Right. So yeah, wow, we covered a lot on Arkham Mayhem on that one.
Yes.
So now moving on to Batman defeats the Jokers
Hmm.
with a Z.
Right.
Again, and I rate here, this would be a track that would not feel out of place in Batman, the animated, or sorry, in Batman Beyond.
Batman the
Uh,
Beyond series.
yes, Batman Beyond the series. This felt again, this felt very, very, very. However, something
Mhm.
that I noticed, and it's something that I noticed throughout the entirety of the score, is there are subtle nods to that opening theme, that
Mhm.
Batman Beyond theme that you drop
Mhm.
in, and it's whether it's just a couple of notes or it's just that dun dun, and it for me it just it was the first track that I kind of went, okay, I see what you're doing here. You are kind of taking it back to the first time that they kind of met, which was
Mhm.
the industrial heist, and then kind of bookending it with these little subtle drop-ins of the theme, as well as kind of stuff that you would use during the industrial heist. So it's kind of those two bookend cues. At least that's how it felt to me.
Well, this, I mean, as I said, this was more of a listening album version. This
Right.
is the second half of the opening teaser.
Ah,
So
okay.
this comes right where after the industrial heist ends, and the end of the industrial heist, it where Terry jumps into the tunnel, and we have this huge statement with the orchestra and the guitars of the
Yep.
Batman Beyond theme. That immediately transitions into this um, Batman defeats the Jokers.
Right.
And something that was kind of fun about this is uh, Bonk, the big hulking character, is mad that Batman's chasing them, and he lets out a big rah in his dialogue.
Right.
And I wanted to incorporate that into the music. So there's a little bit of like an introduction with the guitar and the drums. And then right as soon as the drums kick in, then we're into action central Batman Beyond style, is timed right with his growl.
Oh.
So it's like intro, 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 kick in, rah, like you do it. So that was my attempt to bring in, tr the heaviest of the metal,
I mean,
um, along with the music. So it actually is intentionally timed to make the dialogue almost be a part of the music at that point.
yeah. And when you do things like that, how many people have come up to you and said, "Hey, I like what you did with Bonk." Or is it or do you like I asked this once about I asked Don Davis, who was doing the music for The Matrix,
Mhm.
and he was there was a scene where Agent Smith steps out of the truck each time he steps out of this vehicle, and when
Mhm.
his foot hits the ground, there is this percussion element, boom, boom, every time,
Uh-huh.
and it's something that goes through all three of the films. And I said to him, I said, "Is this something that you do?" Um, for yourself, or is this guided by the filmmakers? And he goes, in this case, it was something I did for myself
Yes.
because every time there was this gravitas that Smith was a huge character. I mean, the Wachowskis loved it,
Hmm.
but it was just he did it for himself. And
Yes.
whenever I hear stories like that where the whole bunk thing, are you doing it for yourself or are you
Absolutely.
doing it through a directive from the director or the
No,
producers?
no, I did this for myself. And again, now that it's 25 years old, I don't think that they're going to go back and change it. But I actually fear, had I pointed it out, they might have asked me to change it. So this was absolutely something. I mean, honestly, being a film composer is a challenge to be creative on demand. It's
Right.
just basically saying, okay, time to sit down and turn on the music and make it happen. You can't really wait for things. And I would be lying if I said that we were always stoically focused on the music. We've got to have fun with it. We've got to have, take opportunities to do something just kind of fun to relieve the tension. And that was absolutely something I said for myself. You know what I'm going to do? I'm gonna make Bonk yell with the music, and it stayed with me until now.
Okay.
So no, and actually to answer your earlier question, I really don't believe anybody has ever come up to me unprompted and asked if that was intentional. So I think it's hidden well.
Okay, good.
You've got the scoop here
All
on your
right.
show.
Awesome. So now let's move on to Joker meets his end in parenthesis again.
Mhm.
So this is, and again, huge written word here, balance. And this is more balance between the Joker and Terry,
Mhm.
where there is more of this um orchestral elements versus electronic
Mhm.
elements. And so for me it felt um that there, of course, when you're doing a track that is essentially a fight scene, is there that pull to have this side is this is that are these instruments and this side is these instruments, and let's have the two kind of play off each other. Is that your intent in these in scenes like that?
Um, Sometimes in this particular one, no, it was really more just, writing the music to fit the story.
Right.
This, yeah, and when I say to write write the music for the story, I mean to follow the story. The music
Right.
has to kind of unfold and unspool in a way that is organic and really linked with the progression of the story and the picture.
Right.
And from the time that the one thing that I think musical that I was intentionally doing with this scene is that when Joker is taunting Terry, um, I set up a musical device. It's called a canon, or sorry, a passacaglia,
Okay.
and it's where there's a repeated theme that repeats over and over and over again. And I think of like the canon in D as a passacaglia.
Right.
Um, and it starts out low, and it incorporates the elements that feel like the circus in terms of these rolling up and down things, passages in the woodwinds and the strings,
Mhm.
but it's all just this unstoppable menace of the Joker, and that's what I think this repeated motif is just like it's inexorable. You can't stop it. You can't
Right.
stop the Joker, and um, so that was one way that I was intentionally using the music to communicate a certain aspect of the story. Um, Even to the point when the Joker grabs Terry and is choking him, it's a huge moment with guitar and loud brass and everything. But
Yeah.
there's even on top of that, there's a piano concerto that's happening. If you listen very close,
Yeah, this was
there's
actually
this.
something that I was going to mention, that there are
Yes.
these surprising piano statements, and I went,
Mhm.
that hasn't come up at all in the rest of the score, and yet it just
Yes.
shows up here.
Right.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but continue.
Well, that's just, unexpected. And I also think about with these big piano chords that it it's just again, it supports that idea that the Joker can't be stopped, and it could be the end of Terry. You know,
Exactly.
this is the worst that he's ever been, and we don't actually know if he's going to make it. Sort of,
Yeah,
but we have to
sort of.
feel we have to feel like this may be it for our hero. And yeah, just the idea of bringing in a piano concerto on top of all that was just to keep the music off kilter and unexpected, and add this whimsical mayhem to the very, very serious threat that Terry is faced with.
No kidding. And I mean, and then I rate here, there is a kind of a Batman the Animated Series ending
Mhm.
with kind of the way that it kind of just the way the track ends. It ends with this almost like it was actually from the series. Was that kind of and again I write in trumpets in parenthesis Bruce with the with kind of a statement that yeah, Bruce is there, um, kind of in Terry's ear, talking about, you know, this is how you this is what you can do to defeat the Joker. But you're again, as you said, you're not sure this is going to work.
Hmm.
So yeah, that to me, it felt like um, there was that. And I mean, I don't know if this is on your. I mean, I'm saying these things, and I don't know if this was on your mind or whether it was subtly in the background where you were doing this. Like, one of the things that, and I have attempted over the years to try and write music that fits with picture and that sort of thing. I have to bow to the superior talent that that you and other composers because it just, I'm like, where does it all come from? Because I can look at a scene and go, this is how it sounds. And then you look at the scene and go, but this is how it feels. And
Right.
that's the difference.
Hmm.
And that's something that I quite haven't gotten to yet. But it's something that I have to bow to the superior talent in this case when
I
it
love that
comes
you're doing that though and
when
exploring
it
that.
comes to that. Yeah, no,
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome, Robert. I guess, just to 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 try to break it down to the most basic as possible is you develop a palette of ways that certain music can make a certain feeling.
right,
And that's what I think, maybe step away from trying to write music to the film
right,
and maybe start with was the feeling that I want to have. So you work on developing music that will communicate a certain feeling, and then you can, gradually find out in maybe broad strokes how to put a piece of music that will make you feel something because you've already got the music making feeling part
right,
under your belt. And then as continue to develop putting music to film, you can get more specific in terms of the music's going to address this thing and this thing and this thing in an organic way without feeling so mishmashy in terms of cutting things up. It's going to have a comfortable flow
right,
when it has to. So yeah, I would definitely say step away from the picture and just work on the feelings, and that's when you can that's how you can apply those techniques to the writing the picture later.
right. I mean, I have a setup currently out in my living room. It's a keyboard. I have cakewalk. I have all of
Cool.
this kind of things, and I've been doing like I've been dabbling here and there just to see. I mean, I did my own version of it's used now in Peaky Blinders, but it was originally used in the X-Files. My own version of Red Right Hand, where it's like this where I've gone through and did it kind of tried to mimic the sound there, and I actually have my I I mean I play the ukulele and I've written my own song. So this is the kind of thing that I'm trying to kind of through watching and listening to what you guys do, trying to bring that to the forefront. And
Awesome. Keep it up
while I
for sure.
haven't quite gone so far as to start taking music classes, I'm working towards getting that, as you said, the feeling. and that's one of the things that where I'm kind of having that struggle that I know how I want it to feel, but how do I get it from here to my fingers on the keyboard or to my to through the ukulele and that sort of thing. So I haven't quite gotten there yet, but I have.
Well, keep it up. I mean,
Thanks.
honestly, I think it's great. I hope you'll continue to explore and develop and experiment, and you never know what you're going to come up with.
Exactly. Exactly. And so now let's move on to track 12. This is Healing Old Wounds. Um, I I often have trouble decide or or picking out what the instrument is, but it starts off with either an oboe or a bassoon or some kind of woodwind.
Hmm.
That's how it felt to me. And again,
Yeah.
I write in big letters here, balance between Bruce, Terry, and Tim. And in this case, there is this, um, as I put it in at about 111 on the track, beautiful strings.
Yeah.
And it just and for me, it was just like this is the perfect way to do this scene where you've got this where you have to kind of balance between the different characters. And I write down here, strings hold until 134, then a perfect transition into the Batman-esque Batman Beyond statement at the end.
Right.
And for me, it's this hold, and you're just like waiting, 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 and then it just goes right into this basically a state the more subtle statement of your main theme
Yeah.
with a little bit of maybe a the Batman the animated series feel to it. So
Yes.
that so for me that was uh like I said, and again, I go back to intent in all of this.
Mhm.
Are you in your process? Are you going back and going, and this actually just brought me to a conclusion. Are you going back and going, this is how this felt. This is how I want it to feel. This is
Mhm.
how I transfer it from here to the score page, let's say.
Yes.
So yeah, I may maybe when we're done here, I may try some of
Oh,
that. Some of
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so the Healing Old Wounds actually is wrapping up music that was um introduced in Terry Relieved of Duty. And
Yes.
incidentally, just to answer your question, the very beginning instrument is a clarinet.
Oh,
So
clarinet. Okay. Yeah, I
it
knew it
was a
was some
woodwind.
kind
You're
of
so close.
I knew it was some kind of woodwind.
Yeah,
I actually played saxophone when I was in high school. So I
cool.
kind of I recognized it as a woodwind, but I
Yeah.
wasn't sure. It felt like an oboe or a bassoon, but then I thought,
Mhm.
no, it's not that specific. It's
Yeah.
more of a it was something else. And when you say clarinet, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it was a clarinet. Um, and the string part actually again was the theme that was introduced back in Terror Relief to Duty in a much different way. It was more sad, and this is more in having the violins play it. They're playing it out very high up on the string in a like up here, and it's a
Yeah.
very intense. But even though it's a low sound because they're on a low string, it's a very intense and expressive sound. And all the way back when because I more or less write the movie in the order that it unfolds so that you can set up things that are going to pay off later. And yes, when I was working on Terry Relief of Duty, I knew that when I come back to this theme in Healing Old Wounds, I was going to have it this time on the violins with that really expressive sound. So
Right.
there was a setting up the payoff that setting up for the payoff now that comes back.
So is that a technique as well, the setup and
Mm.
payoff?
Absolutely.
Do you not so that's so you set it's well, I mean, I keep thinking of the literary technique of Chekhov's gun. You see a
Mhm.
gun in the first scene, the gun is going to be used in the film
Of course.
eventually. So is
Yeah. So
that is if there
if there's
is
a
sorry,
clarinet,
guys.
it's going to get used.
Right. Okay.
Chekhov's clarinet.
Yes.
Um, yeah. And the build to the very last, and of course this is the dramatic payoff of Healing Old Wounds
Hmm.
is that Bruce is accepting of Terry, and Terry's going to get to continue to be
Yes.
Batman under Bruce's tutelage and supervision. And of course that was what that whole ending scene is in a very Batman the Animated Series way. Terry up on the building with the city, and he's going to swoop off into the next adventure.
Yep.
Um, that build up of that suspended string before we go into that big final theme is absolutely the work of Joe Gall. He
Okay.
edited. He's the picture editor for a lot of shows. Again, Batman the Animated Series and Superman and Batman Beyond. Brilliant storyteller. And he's the one that held, holds the scene just long enough that you're just waiting, anticipating, and here we are
Yep.
up on the top of the building. And so the fact so Joe and Bruce Timm, when they're editing the picture, are being very intentional of let's hold this as long as we can to give me, as the composer, the opportunity to build that anticipation musically. So it's all that dramatic payoff, emotional payoff, is all a combination of the picture and the music and the storytelling and everything. It all comes together to have that emotionally satisfying moment.
So now we're just going to briefly discuss this one. Track 13, Crash. That's basically just a musical track added by the studio to kind of draw to for the kids. I
No, it
guess
was
the
it
best
was a
way.
collaboration with Warner Music. There were Warner artists. The Crash is used in the movie in one of the
Yes.
dance club scenes. So it made sense on the soundtrack to include the entire song. And they made a wonderful video where the singer, actually, who has lots of hair, has long hair, um, had it hairsprayed up almost like
Yeah,
bat wings at the
I
top.
I
It's
actually
really
remember
great.
I remember watching that video in
Yeah.
like interlaced or non-interlaced
Oh,
choppy when
yeah.
the I remember going on to the Batman Return of the Joker website in
Yeah.
2000 and seeing
Right.
and they had all of these little extras that you could watch and that sort
Yeah.
of thing, and that was one of the extras that I remember
Yeah. So,
watching.
but that was something that was arranged between Warner Music and Warner Brothers Animation, and
Right.
so I wasn't. It's not often that the composer has anything to do with outside songs that are brought into movie projects.
Yeah, it was one of the things I've often heard is that a composer will go, "Hey, I heard these guys in a club in, wherever you would hear. Maybe we should include them on the soundtrack or include their song." So I thought that might be a part of that, but no, if it's just something that brought them in, then or if it was Warner Brothers that brought them in, then that makes perfect sense as well.
Yeah, I mean, somebody had the idea and they pitched it to the people that made the decision. And like I said, that part of the process is not something I participated in at all. But absolutely, yeah. I mean, it can be as structured and corporate as the company wants to push their new artists, and all the way back to something really organic of I saw these guys in a club. I think all ways to discover music or include music in film. Any way you want to think of it, a million different ways it can happen.
So much fun. One thing in her mind is just fun and games. Scot free, baby wants to point the blame. Just enough people gonna spread the word. Break it down, cause it's got to be heard. No, I hope she don't crash. No, I hope she don't crash. Really living on borrowed time. Now I start to think how or why. An aim is driving inside her head. She only needs to have ego fed. Hope she don't crash. Hope she don't crash. Hope she don't crash. Hope she don't crash. Running up, baby, like a falling star. 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 Hope she don't crash. Hope she don't crash. Hope she don't crash. Hey, I know I hope she don't crash.
Yeah, so now let's move on to track 14, which, um, in my opinion, when I first heard the soundtrack back in 2000, I'm going, this is what I would like to see performed on stage. A version of your Batman Beyond theme with the addition of a guitarist. Now
Mhm.
it's not Gabriel. This is Kenny Wayne Shepherd is
Yeah.
the featured guitarist on this. I
Mhm.
have written in huge letters here, this track absolutely slaps.
Oh, there we go.
Um,
We're we're
uh, uh,
back.
yeah, and we're back on that. And I put this, Kenny Shepherd absolutely shreds on this track. There are
Hmm.
moments when he's just there. Okay, so was this a case of you wrote the track and then we added Kenny Shepherd later, or was this as we did the track and then he's in the studio, you played the track, and was it that kind of thing? Was it is it a was it what did he just riff to the track later, or was it something? Let's come down to the studio and have a listen.
Well, it's a variation, kind of a remixed version of the main title.
Right. Yes.
So the main title was performed by Gabriel Moses,
Yes.
and so some of the that music was reimagined into this new track
Right.
that was done.
Right.
So, and yes, it was a matter of, but I mean, I sent the track to Kenny Wayne Shepherd, who would listen to it, and then we showed up at Cherokee Studios in Hollywood, which is another, renowned recording studio. He showed up there, and yeah, so we spent a couple hours of him capturing his performance of the way that he felt after listening to the track. I mean, he's a
Right.
very traditional blues feel kind of player. So there
Right.
was no chart, there was no, sheet music. There was we're gonna hit record and put your magic on it. And that's what so he that's that track is a capturing of his what he was feeling when he listened to the music.
That's cool.
And yeah, that was a little bit more of a I had a little bit more of a process of a participation in that process of we'd like to have an established artist, incorporated with the score in this way. We're
Right.
thinking about Kenny Wayne Shepherd. I'm like, cool, let's do it. Um, so
Like
so we worked together.
I could see something like this being played as a, like an instrumental, like they used to do with themes like Miami Vice and that sort of
Hmm.
thing. I could see a radio edit of this showing up. It was that
Oh,
for me, it was that kind of thing, and it
that's
surprised me
cool.
that it didn't. Because that would have really been cool.
So incidentally, the Hollywood Bowl, which is the really iconic Hollywood venue that
Yes.
Bunny and Tom and Jerry have been shown playing at, I was familiar with the Hollywood Bowl orchestra conductor John Mauceri, and after I finished this score and I had the CD, I had a meeting with him one day and I played a bunch of it for him, and he got very excited about it, and he wanted to include this blend of heavy metal and orchestra at the Hollywood Bowl. So, in fact, he and the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra commissioned a suite of music from Return of the Joker that they premiered one summer in 2000, maybe it's 2002. I can't remember what summer it was, but on their American Classics concert, 18,000 people were there to listen to this piece, and Gabriel, and it wasn't Kenny Wayne Shepherd, but actually Gabriel Moses got to play with the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra at the Hollywood Bowl live, and it was really exciting to hear that music on stage like that, and have the audience just react to that raw energy
Right.
of the electric guitar and the orchestra all in one in one space. It was very unusual, very unexpected, I think, for people that normally go to the bowl.
Hmm.
But I'm just so grateful that Maestro Riccieri, took a chance on it and asked to share that music with his audience, and it was really a very memorable experience.
Yeah. no problem. Now I have written here, and this is me, very heartfelt. This is a Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, as I wrote this, is a masterclass of how to score an animated feature in the same vein as what Shirley Walker did with uh, Mask of the Phantasm. And
Wow.
I am honestly glad that Batman Beyond is getting re-released, and people are now able um to experience it, because that was one of the things that, after I did um my Batman Beyond, um it was, well, that it was 99, so 25 years of Batman Beyond the previous year. I had a couple of people coming up to me asking, and I wish I knew the answer, asking where, first of all, where they could find the music. And somebody asked me, what were the tracks that you used to base a lot of this on? Because we mentioned during the interview, which I played during the panel, was that you had gone with some, you had sent the Batman Beyond, you'd sent some industrial music and then some
Mhm.
of your own tracks to the
Right.
execs, and it was
Mhm.
like, they kind of went, so this is what these people can do as well. And
Mhm.
one of the questions was, well, what other tracks did you send that 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 you based your process on to make the Batman Beyond music? So that, for me, that was, for me, I was just like, this is awesome. I mean, and a lot of these people, and I asked before before it started, how many of you saw Batman Beyond when it first came out? And I'd say about maybe half of
Mm.
the people in the audience were raised their hand and said, "Yeah, I was born in such and such a time." But there was a majority, again, about half, that had later picked up the
Wow.
Batman Beyond
Yeah.
series, and
Wow.
so they were there to hear what I had to say about the music, and what you, Lolita, and Michael had to say about the music. So that, to me, shows that, as you said, that people are now taking these scores and giving them a second listen, which
Mm.
has been my purpose since 2000, when I started this show, to go, hey, it ain't just John Williams that's out there, it's all of these other people. And so it's that rant over on that one, in regards to that. But yeah, so and I'm going to ask this question, because I know that the Batman Beyond series music has been released. Are there any plans for an expanded release of this,
Of
uh,
Return of the
of
Joker.
Return of the Joker,
No.
or that you can talk about? I know that's one of the big ones for me, is that, uh, maybe, but I can't talk about it, kind of thing. So no.
Yeah, no, it's something that is on a longer term radar.
Right.
We've been releasing Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and Teen
Yes.
Titans and the original series Batman Beyond. It's certainly on our list because the Rhino Records that released that original out of print CD,
Yep.
it's great to have that out there, but there's literally like 45 more minutes of music. There it is.
There it
You're holding
is.
it up.
Yeah.
There's literally probably 45 more minutes of music that wasn't on the CD.
Yeah.
So I'd love to. The fact that we are doing these archival releases means it's not a definite no, but it's a ways away and not even in the point of being contemplated yet. So
Right.
stay tuned.
Okay.
Well, this score means the most to me. It was my first big solo credit.
Right.
My first time to uh, you know to kind of step out on my own and do some music that I thought was really truly what I wanted to express. And so it means a tremendous amount to have the opportunity by both Shirley with her blessing and Bruce Timm's trust and Warner Brothers support to produce this huge score in terms of having both the orchestra and all the days with the rock musicians. Um, I cannot minimize how much it means to work with live musicians. It's pretty incredible what synthesizers and samplers can do, but having a master of their instrument sit down in front of the notes that you've created and pour their musicality into it is something that it just can't be it can't be recreated with samples and computers, and I'm thrilled for that. So getting to work with an entire orchestra of incredible musicians was a huge highlight along my career path. There was a there was a moment when we were mixing one Saturday, and most of the gates into the Warner Brothers studios were closed. And I was going into the gate, which was closed, so it meant I had to drive to another one. And it turns out that there was another filmmaker there who had just been dropped off at the gate and didn't realize that it was closed. And it was Joe Dante, the director.
Okay.
And so the security guard asked if I would give Mr. Dante a ride over to the gate that was open, which I did. And he's a very gracious man. And I could tell the entire car trip, the 5 minutes or so of 10 minutes, that he was terrified I was going to pitch him for something. And he stepped out of my car, said thank you, and was gone. Um, yeah, working with Kenny Wayne Shepherd was a highlight. I remember there's in the behind the scenes video a moment where I was coming on the mic. I was sitting in the control room of the studio and just said, "Hey, here's the Batman theme. If you can kind of maybe incorporate a little bit of that in one of your riffs," and sang it to him, and then he just like picked up his guitar and went to town on it. That was a really cool collaboration to work with him on that. One other quick story I wanted to share. The Before I did Return of the Joker, I had been selected to be in the Sundance Composers Lab, which was a long-running program where the Sundance Institute, which also runs the film festival,
Right.
would bring in young composers, and they would pair them up with mentors to work over several weeks up at the Sundance Resort. And you'd also meet some of the Sundance directing fellows and collaborate on their short films. And one of my mentors at the time was Michael Dana, who did The Life of Pi,
Okay.
and many scores. He's Canadian,
He was the first.
and
Yeah, so sorry. Little side note. He was the very first composer I interviewed.
although then you know exactly what I'm talking
I
about.
knew that.
Michael Dana, he was one of the mentors, and he was very very supportive of me during the workshop. And it happened, and I don't remember what film it was, but in one of the mixing rooms adjacent to the scoring stage at Warner Brothers, he was mixing a film, and he heard that I was scoring, and I actually have a picture of him coming over to listen to the music a bit, and he was just a very congratulatory and so supportive of the fact that, I'd gone from being somebody that he'd mentored at the lab to now having, being on the scoring stage and producing music for a film. And so that was a really great moment to kind of say, "Hey, thanks for all your advice. We're putting it to use." So thank you, Robert, for having me on today. It's been a real pleasure to kind of do a deep dive on this score.
Yeah.
It's I love this format. I mean, I think that there's a lot to you can enjoy tracks, but there's a lot you can really get into the meaning and the craft of them. And so giving somebody like myself the opportunity to talk about that development, I
Right.
really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right. Well, we're pushing 2 hours here, so I've got some editing to do, but at
Yeah.
the same time, it's been very enlightening.
Glad
Talking
that-
about this, I enjoy uh as a fan, as a kind of a broadcaster and that sort of thing. I love doing stuff like this, and can't wait for another opportunity to be able to talk, whether it's with you or whether it was with someone else in the same vein as doing this. And I'm again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. This means a whole lot to me.
Oh, Robert, thank you. Thank you. I mean, it means a ton to me too. So I appreciate it a lot.
All right.
So there you go. Almost 2 hours with Chris Carter talking about the Batman Beyond Return of the Joker score, which we hope will get a release in the next little while. We'll see. Right now, it's kind of hard to find, but it is out there. It was released on the Rhino Records back in the day, so if you can find a copy of it out in the wild, by all means pick it up. It is definitely worth it. And if you're interested in any of the film, television, or video game music that I do play on my show, you can listen to me every week, every Saturday morning, 12 to 2 a.m. on Mix 98.5. And if you miss the show, by all means, hey, check out visionsinsound.ca. I am on Blue Sky these days at visionsinsound.bsky.social. I can also be found on Good Pods, a downloadable app for your phone or other type devices. And you can also find me on many of the other podcatchers out there, including the likes of Apple Music. So we'll say this. Please like, share, and subscribe. Definitely get out there and listen to some fantastic scores, some great scores, because there are more composers out there than you realize. So, and they're definitely worthy of your time. So with that in mind, have yourself a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.